this movie is a public service announcement.
Yes. So what should we be doing with scissors?
Not running with them.
No, and maybe not have them suspended gigantically above your head.
Right, over here. All right, yeah. We're going to talk about a movie that uses scissors not only as a metaphor, but an ex machina and a cliche.
And just about everything you could possibly do with it.
Yeah, it's a trifecta of scissors.
Yeah, scissors, a.k.a. Fatal Instinct, a.k.a. A dozen other names. Today on Kyle and Nick on Film, we're going back to 1991. Today we're talking scissors, and Nick, I'm going to tell you right now, hopefully we don't disagree on this because you have the only pair of scissors.
These are actually righties. I'm a left-handed, so it's going to be awkward. 1991, after Total Recall and before Basic Instinct, Sharon Stone did this movie, and one of the first movies she headlined. She got her start funny in the movie King Solomon Mines, where the producer simply said, the producers of the film simply, just give me that stone woman to put in the movie, referring to Kathleen Turner and Jewel of the Nile romancing the stone. And instead they got Sharon Stone, and that's how her career started.
Fair enough. All right, I'll know to change my name if I ever want to pursue acting.
So this is another one of those hard movies, like we said with Pool Hall Junkies, it's hard to find. This is another one that's kind of hard to find.
Very difficult to find. Streaming services were tough to look at, and also like just getting a copy. It actually does exist on Blu-ray. I found a copy of it there, but it's a complete bare bones edition. There's very little like aftermatter for like cinephiles, so really no reason to actually go hunting for this version.
Yeah.
I was able to find it online. Basically, the plot of the film is following a attempted sexual assault, or really sexual assault, I guess. It is, it is
an elevator.
Gone through in an elevator. A woman basically tries to kind of like get over what she's dealing with when she ends up in an apartment building, trapped with the dead body of the very person who committed her sexual assault. So it's like, what's interesting is that this film started out as an episode of Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
Yeah, like a short film.
It was unmade.
Like a TV show.
Yeah,
TV show.
It was an unmade version of this film. And basically, Frank De Felitta, who is responsible for kind of writing that piece, picked up those rights, wanted to make a feature film version of it. When it's funny, I didn't know that story till after watching the film, but the entire time I was sitting there thinking, this is a Tales from the Crypt episode.
It could be.
And its biggest flaw is that it's not 30 minutes. I mean, that's really the part of it that ruined the experience for me, is that it does not sustain itself for any amount of time worthwhile to telling a story.
No.
It's stretched, and we all know what it's like when you get a short film that's really great and someone stretches it into a feature that just doesn't work. That's what Scissors is.
So yeah, a lot of subplots don't go anywhere. A lot of things that get revealed like doesn't add up. Definitely, it's cut up weird. For metaphorically, it looks. I would say, and I mentioned this on social media. It's like it did acid with Brian De Palma, and it did cocaine with David Lynch, and David Cronenberg was watching. Yeah. It's like all three
and
of these.
And it was as if all guys got really high and tried to make an Alfred Hitchcock movie.
All three of them, right. Yeah, it's all that. It's a trifecta film. So, yeah, and you got a lot of the people that you recognize from the early 90s. You got Roddy Cox, who was in Total Recall. You got Steve Ralsback, who's famous for being in, he fell in love with the space vampire in Life Force.
That's right.
That's
right. And he plays two roles in this film. And I didn't actually realize. I thought maybe he had like a twin that I didn't know about. Because actually, I do find that he was convincing as two different people, and I was trying to reel back when I realized it was the same actor and see if they ever really appeared together or if it was doubles. And I think there's got to be a shot in the movie where they're both front and center, and they use maybe some CGI or some cross-cutting during editing. Railsback, that's the whole thing. Is like both Railsback characters serve almost no purpose in the narrative except to expand it to feature length, and that's the problem. Is that I think he can be a really menacing character actor, and I think he has that moment when you start to realize what their background is and what they're kind of going for, and then ultimately leads nowhere. Sharon Stone, I don't think she has, at this point in her career, she's not like really maintaining a story or maintaining my interest in the story. It's a lot of shocked moments of her being
it kind of shows through the movie of her like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm almost gonna lose it too.
Yeah.
Cuckoo Bananas.
And that's where I think like when you're so early in your career and you're headlining a movie,
there's a lot of pressure.
You have that pressure, and it does help to get someone who believes in you and has a strong directing sense. I don't think Felitta has that, but of course working with Verhoeven on Total Recall and then Basic Instinct as well, which I think Basic Instinct is like the greatest erotic thriller of all time. I think it's amazing. But Verhoeven has a sense for how he can work with this actress, and he gets the best performance out of her in this time period.
rather than going through the valleys like she's supposed to do in this movie, going up, happy,
Yeah, it
sad.
feels like those moments in Creepshow, you know, when they purposely go over the top.
Yes.
You know, if they had put like a big light filter over her and had her be shocked by something, it might have been more engaging. But she just doesn't really know what to do with the source material, and she doesn't really want to be there, it looks like.
So a lot of the problems when we talk about, you know, films that go below par is a lot of the editing. I am not happy or really satisfied with the ending. It kind of messes it up. I think a good editor would kind of clean this up a little bit. Not save it, but there's a lot of scenes that just snip out. Or, we always talk about editing is not really the editor's problem. It's what he has to deal with sometimes. But a lot of the emphasis of lines gets kind of ridiculous. Because she's in psychotherapy and she screams, you know, what's wrong? Because women don't have red beards. It's like, what?
Yeah.
And it's kind of, it was almost like giving a comedic response where you're not supposed to. It's supposed to be a dramatic, which kind of like, that's kind of gives a giggle, yeah.
Well, that's kind of the issue too with
Giggle out of it.
You said editing could like not save the movie, but at least like rescue it from. I don't know what kind of footage they have outside of what we saw, of course, but to me, the twists and turns and the ultimate reveals that the film gets to are so convoluted because you're asking yourself, why would you, like, you're really asking like your villain, why would you even do this instead of 10 other things that are easier? Why would you like have this elaborate setup? It almost felt like a Scooby-Doo cartoon, you know, and it's like, why would you wear the mask and terrorize a small town as the minor 49er when you could just, you know, kill a bunch of, like, you're doing the same kind of thing. They're both awful things.
There's a lot of wasted energy in this, and there's a lot of wasted explanations. For instance, Steve Railsback's twin brother is faking a handicap that you don't really talk about. When Sharon Stone is trapped in the building, is somebody with bad vision is the only person that can know that she's up there, and it doesn't really explain it very well. Yeah. So there's a certain elements of playing with like what David Lynch does with certain things, but it just doesn't look. It's fumbling the whole time as it does it.
Yeah, the big difference between what's going on in this film and Lynch is style, and that is that even though Lynch, I tend to again, like, maybe I'm hypocritical, but Mulholland Drive for me has a lot of unexplored avenues where it's like, does that have anything to do with what's going on? That's kind of like a red herrings and such. Yeah. And what's different is that it's beautifully done, where it's like, even if you don't understand what's happening, you're enthralled with at least like the visual like experience of watching it. Yeah. And this film just kind of, it's very dirty and grimy looking. And that's, you know, not even looking at a great copy of the film, but it doesn't feel like it's got any like flash to it. Yeah. And then ultimately, like back to the ending of it, the big reveal followed by another like kind of twist and finale, that doesn't feel earned at all. No. I don't know enough about these characters to care any of the situations they're in.
So we mentioned Basic Instinct. This was actually titled Final Instinct in Germany. I think it's German dubbed. If you find it, we did have a copy at the store called Final Instinct, but people kept renting it out thinking it was the parody Final Instinct. Yeah. And we had to get rid of it, because people get mad, and so they meant Final Instinct, and they're like, this is not in, and we have to give a refund. It was all business, so we took it off the shelves. But also, I realized somebody on social media put up that there's a VH copy of this called Psycho Nightmare. So if you want to probably find it, you could probably search under those titles as well.
Yeah, best thing to do if you're a cinephile, you probably have a Letterboxd account. It is under Scissors on there, but it's one of those, like the film has gotten so many different names that thankfully with Letterboxd you can search one of those other names and usually it brings you to that one. Yeah. It's weird to have that. I always think it's so interesting, but Scissors also is a very bad title for this movie because it serves like a very small plot device. Right. But again, even like Scissors themselves tend to be a red herring, and like the fact that they appear in most scenes doesn't really have anything to do with the narrative, and it almost just seems like
I said at the beginning, it's like an ex machina cliche and a metaphor, and he did the trifecta of writing this. It's just right, yeah. Where you could title Dial M for Murder, Scissors, and that would fit.
And one of the elements that I think is interesting in this film is the music. Alfie Cabillo, I believe I'm saying that right, who gave us Just Between Us and Jim Cotta. He'd done a lot of smaller budget films, but it's weird listening to that soundtrack. I think the soundtrack feels like it's maybe servicing the dolls in her apartment.
Yeah, she's a doll repair person.
It sounded so much to like some of the weirder elements in the Child's Play franchise. I think it almost, beat for beat, seems to come out of a Children of the Corn sequel, like one of the bad sequels that people don't talk about. It's an interesting development, but again, it's like the Scissors, where like you're focused on the dolls, and they really serve nothing in the ultimate narrative. Oh. And I think that's the problem, is it feels like every single person in this film thought something else was more important to the narrative. And ultimately, none of them thought the actual plot was the most important part of the narrative. Not even Ronnie Cox, who I think is one of those guys who can almost save any movie or TV show because he can play it. He can figure out what movie he's in and play it. He doesn't know what he's doing in this movie.
No.
You know, I don't think anyone does.
Especially for the ending. And here, the ending is weird because they want to do a shot of her leaving, but they put a prop head in the taxi, so it looks like it's not her head.
Is that what that is?
Yeah,
okay,
like
that's
they put
really
it on
weird.
the windowsill, like it's like maybe she was in the car. They had to use a prop head to show her, but it looks like it's like a decapat.
I thought
like
they
she's
drugged her.
decapat. So, like I said, a lot of bad movies when you fill it in something, it doesn't look authentic, and then you question like, what is going on? Is that her? Or is that a model ahead? And then you go like, is that his perception? So it's a lot of tanglements that didn't really need to be tangled in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, one interesting thing I want to point out, that there is one, I think, strong element to the film, but it's ultimately one that can't save it. This kind of a thing, if it's strong in any movie, can almost never really save it.
Yeah.
But it is a strong production design from Craig Stearns. I do like the design for the apartment. I like the design for her apartment.
The apartment she's trapped in.
The one she's trapped in. I mean, he did...
Brian De Palma's like, let's film that.
Yeah. Craig Stearns did The Mask and did Big Mama's House, and so he kind of like went on to do some bigger projects. And I think production design is actually particularly strong in the film.
Agree.
Even the opening sequence where she's buying the pair of scissors that's ultimately meaningless. She's buying them from this really interesting shop, and there's I love the little trays that are rotating.
Yeah, it's a rotating tray.
It's a really nice little like feeling that you think is going to mean more.
Right. Yeah. So a lot of the things that you enjoy, you're like, oh, we're gonna go something. This is interesting, and then it goes away.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the funny thing about in the early '90s, if you didn't know, if you dress like fashionable, like a suit and tie, but it was dark clothing, that meant you were serious. You weren't fooling around, and that meant serious business. So anytime in the '90s, especially this movie, where somebody's wearing the dark colors, like the earthy dark tones that we did in the '90s, oversized suits that make you feel like you're drowning, it meant you were serious business.
Yeah. So ultimately, looking at this through the male gaze of Frank De Felitta, it's a really odd thing because in the '90s, we have a time period, women directors don't really get a chance. There are very few that are running around. There are many that want to, they're just not getting the projects they deserve. And you almost wonder if a film like Scissors, rewritten and directed by a female director,
I was just thinking that.
Better purpose.
Yes, I was just thinking.
Again, you're tackling these elements of sexual assault, being
Sexual
kidnapped.
identity.
And then recovery too.
Yeah.
Because the assault is in the opening of the film, you have an opportunity to deal with the post-traumatic stress of what's going on.
They just gloss right over.
Glossed over so much. And then you get the Railsback character, where it's like the brother with the glasses, the actor brother. I think to myself, if you're trying to get with a woman who has just gone through a sexual assault, maybe you need to rethink what you're doing there, because his first focus seems to be his own libido and less on the trauma she's dealing with. And so much so that when he opens the elevator and he sees her on the floor like that, his first thought is to lunge at her, and he goes in to pick her up. And it's you need to understand, I don't know if I would have known what had happened to her, but she definitely looked like something was wrong.
Yeah, so I got in my notes, very macho male perspective of a woman having traumatic assault, which doesn't flow very well at all. And I don't think a woman who had a sexual assault will go to a male psychiatrist and reveal that she has problems with her sexual identity and all the, almost like a confessional, to a point that it's a trope that I don't think that, even if it's Ronnie Cox, it doesn't even say he's appreciated. He's like, yeah, that's you. Let's go on next. Yeah, that's you.
And I didn't think to myself, during those scenes, I'm like, does she see him in a more fatherly role? Because she also says she's sexually attracted to him.
Yes.
And it's kind of like that, psychiatrist fantasy, that some males have, where it's oh, my patient is coming on to me and she's really gorgeous. And it's just kind of weird, again, when you have that, and going into the capture in the apartment could be really interesting through a female lens and through a female eye. Especially when you get our big reveals that happen, that could be really interesting in how you showcase that through the female lens.
Yeah.
That's the problem, is that there's so many of these films where, like, she kind of comes off as a damsel in distress the entire movie, even though she does a lot of her own saving.
Right.
She's still a damsel for the entirety of the film.
Yeah, the perception she's looking for somebody to save her.
Yeah.
And she's lost, and someone needs to rescue her.
She surrounds herself with male figures.
Yeah.
Because there's very few, like, other than Sharon Stone, there's very few female characters in the film, and most of them don't serve as much of a
I know, they have
except
Michelle
for,
Phillips
like,
from the Mamas and Papas. Do something with her. She just comes in and...
I feel like they had her for like a day. I feel like they like this is how long you have to shoot this.
Yeah.
Because there's no female representation in the film outside of her, and she's constantly seen through the lens of men, and she doesn't really have anything to offer. I mean, really, her character is so wooden, she doesn't have a whole lot to offer, but they keep hinting at something important she's doing. Yeah. I like that she's taking these broken dolls and fixing them.
Right.
They never get anywhere with it.
It should be it should be a good writing trope. She's broken, and instead of dealing with her own problems, she's fixing dolls as a mask to, rather than feel good about fixing something else other than herself. It's a good angle to put in writing, but it just fumbles. It looks cringy.
Well, and because of that, it's on the head until you realize it's not part of what's intended. It's because she needs someone to fix herself. Like, she doesn't. If her big reveal was that she can fix herself, she can get over things like that, that would be something. But she never actually fixes. So the fact that these dolls feel like they serve a purpose, again, the music seems to suggest so. It doesn't go anywhere.
Actually, a second rewatch, you can tell right where the unpublished script was.
Yeah, you can see where the film would have started, where it would have ended.
Yeah,
I think if you went back in and chopped out an hour of this movie, you actually might have something on the cusp of watchable.
Right, because then you get the exposition dump at the end, which, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can't, I mean, that only works in Bond films, and even then it's kind of, problematic.
Or Harry Potter films, they get the huge exposition dump at the end there, before we're going. So, overall, I think it's actually a fascinating film to watch. Mm-hmm. I am not going to say it's a marvelous film. There's a lot of mistakes. If you're going to be a writer, figure out, it's a good thing to watch, not what not to do. Mm-hmm. Especially if you reveal something and it doesn't go anywhere. People get agitated about that. I mean, we have the twin brothers faking a handicap, but it doesn't explain why, where to go. There's not consequences to it.
And that's a far more interesting spot in the film where I thought that avenue would be looked into. And it's worse when you have a red herring that is more interesting than your actual mystery.
And the dialogue's a little clunky. You have Steve Railsbach calling Ronnie Cox and that, did you get a letter? I got a letter too. That is great. Nobody talks like that on the phone to a complete stranger. Yeah.
That's another thing too, yeah. Oh.
The dialogue's kind of like, we should have reworked that a little bit.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem natural. Yeah.
Yeah, again, definitely not a recommendation from me. I think, if you want to see something truly, mishmash together to learn from it, that's on you, I guess. Yeah. But I would tell you right now, there are plenty of other films that make this mistake that are at least more watchable.
And we begin to find out that a lot of films that are hard to find, there's a reason for it.
Yeah. Yeah, we're Billy the Kid and the Green Bay's Vampire. No, I'm joking. I actually like that movie. We're pool hall junkies all over again.
Yeah. So usually, why is it difficult to find? Oh, now we realize why it's difficult to find. No. Have you seen it?
Yeah, this is going to be.
Or do you have a copy of it, Psycho Nightmare? Let me know. Put a picture or something. Share.
Oh yeah, tweet at us with your alternate titles to this film if you feel like you've got a copy of it somewhere around. I want to know if there's anything else we missed because I only heard about I think it was Final Instinct. Was that the one? I keep saying Fatal Instinct, but that's the spoof. Final Instinct, and then you talk about what it's called, Psycho
Nightmare,
which is totally memorable for this movie. And it seems like every different title gets a little bit worse. So definitely, we saw the film. We aren't big fans of it. Are you? Let us know in the comment section down below if you are a fan of Scissors. Do you think it's better than Basic Instinct? That's something I really want to know, is if you happen to think it's better than Basic Instinct.
Or is it funnier than Final Instinct?
Yeah. Let us know in the comment section down below. Don't forget to give us a like, too. It helps us out in those algorithms, getting us higher up in the YouTube, and it really helps out the show a lot, too. You can also click subscribe, and you can get our new episodes every week when they drop here on Kyle and Nick on Film. We got 2 episodes every week, and we're coming too close to an end of our 1991 theme.
Yeah.
So we've got one more episode of that, and then we're jumping into next month. What else can you do, Nick?
Join the
You
Patreon!
can join the Patreon. We got a link down in the description. You don't have to do any typing. Just go ahead and click that link, patreon.com/.
We're adding more videos to it, too.
Yeah, we're working hard on getting some more interesting content for that Patreon as well, and really giving back to our fans, the ones who support us. Yeah. So definitely consider joining us and supporting independent content creators. That's all the time for us, guys. Once again, you can find all my film reviews on goatfilmreviews.com.
I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast.
And I'm just going to get away from you.